right.
All right.
I'm good. Let's do it. It is the last day of school here on Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk, our last show before we take our summer break and come back during training camp. But thank goodness the Dolphins know how to go out with a bang. There was Tua discussing his contract situation. There was Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle talking about Tua's weight loss. There was the Waddle contract extension. There was Tyreek talking about wanting more money. And while all that was going on, the Dolphins cut down their 3-day mini camp to a 2-day mini camp. Crazy times in Dolphins land. Welcome again to our final Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. Before training camp, I'm your host, Chris Perkins, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist. That is David Furones, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Dolphins writer. Thank you once again to all viewers for joining us, and we remind you can be part of the show by joining our group chat. Also, if you miss any part of the show, you can catch our podcast on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. I saw a lot of intriguing things out there on the field during OTAs and minicamp, about 90% of which we can't discuss, but enough to make me think this Dolphins team is going to do things differently offensively and defensively. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Tua, Tyreek, Jalen, and their contract situations in our Furones bonus, one of the most popular segments of the 3 segments on this show. We're going to talk about the biggest 3 Dolphin stories of the offseason.
It's only one of the most popular out of 3.
It is. I don't lie. I do not lie. I never lie. It definitely is. It definitely is. So look, I'm really looking forward to training camp, but first we got to sort through what turned into a newsy mini camp. The storylines are deep. Let's dive in. 3 segments, baby. You're one of the best, Furones. You're one of the best. I'm telling you.
One of the best. I'm in the top 3.
You're in the top 3.
Top 3.
Come on. I mean, come on. That's pretty good, I think. That's pretty good. All right, so Furones, the contract situations for Tua and Tyreek and Jalen, I think they did really well with Jalen Waddle, giving him a fair amount of money, acknowledging his contribution, his role to the team, getting out ahead of the receiver market, right? Because we know some other receivers, CD Lamb and guys like that still have to get paid. Which contract situation do you think is the most, I guess, the most advantageous to the Dolphins right now? And I'm saying, what we think Tua is going to get. Would it be Tua? Would it be Waddle? Or would it be Tyreek, even knowing that he wants a little bit more money?
Yeah, well, Tua, you're going to have to pay the premium because, as he told us, the market is the market. So you're going to be paying more than $50 million. And he just watched Jared Goff get $53 million. So he's going to want that. He's going to want to get paid more than Justin Herbert's $52.5 million. And this is average annual value. So that's not just that's average per year for the duration of the contract. Justin Herbert got $52.5 million. That was last year before the NFL salary cap went up by 13%. And Tua is the guy that was drafted by the Dolphins 1 pick ahead of Justin Herbert. So I think he's going to make sure he wants more a year later after the salary cap went up as much as it did. And we're seeing that market, exactly as you said, explode. So most advantageous right now, it would be Jalen Waddle because you secured him. You got a contract figure that right now he's happy with. But I think in the future, as you see these deals continue to rise, it won't be as burdensome once you actually get into the years of the extension, because while you have him for that 3-year, $84 million extension, which is 28 per, that's the nickname that Tyreek Hill gave him. His new nickname is 28 for that $28 million per year that he's getting. Which is a big deal for non-quarterbacks, and the 76 guaranteed, which is a huge number for him to secure in his career. You still have him for the next 2 years on the rookie contract, and then that fifth-year option that you picked up this year in 2025. So now that extension kicks in for the final 3 years of these next five, and it won't look that bad, or at least as much money once you get to that point. And then Tyreek Hill, well, it's advantageous in this way in that there are no guarantees beyond next year. So you have the flexibility if you're the Dolphins. You get him for this year, and you have that duo of him and Jalen Waddle for Tua. You already know that's going to be in play. Now he wants more money. But if you're the Dolphins, with all the off-the-field issues that you've had with Tyreek Hill, you don't have to give it to him. And Tyreek Hill has made it clear that he wants to retire with the Dolphins, but you can kind of play this by just this year and say, okay, well, we have this year with him. Maybe if he behaves well and he continues to produce and he shows no signs of decline as he now goes into an age 30 season, you could go ahead and give him more. But aside from that, you're not committed to it. And you can also proceed in the future with Jalen Waddle becoming your number one, and then going the route of what the Kansas City Chiefs did with Tyreek Hill, if you so choose, and then trying to draft another receiver, coming in with a mix of maybe a veteran signing. This is now the following offseason with a rookie in the following draft class, and go about it that way.
Yeah, that's a very interesting approach. I think that Waddle is going to be the most advantageous contract situation, like say 2 or 3 years from now, for cost and performance. But that's interesting with Tyreek. I fear the future of this team without Tyreek. And I think he's got leverage, but that could all change, right? That could all change this year or next year, depending on, what Jalen Waddle's role is, or, how much they choose to run, how much they choose to use the tight end. Things could shift. Things are not going to stay static. We know that about the NFL and pro sports.
Hey, you've said it before. You've said it best. That this offense is about Tyreek Hill and the threat of Tyreek Hill. One of the great Perk quotes in history. It's like a philosopher type of quote when it comes to analyzing football. I love it, and it's true. That's what the offense has really been in large part these last 2 years under Mike McDaniel, with Tua having him and also Jalen Waddle. But Waddle can also, down the road, and if you're paying him like he's a number one option, and he's a guy who was drafted 6th overall in his class, so one day, he should be able to take those reins of the number one wide receiver option.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Hey, welcome to Pete's Takes. Fitzgerald Grass from Naples. Cap for Life, Nandito 357, Ender Fireplays YT, Evan Langley, Jonathan Deal, Dave Harbor from San Diego. What's up? Be Stuck the Poet. Welcome to everybody. Let me ask you this, Furones. Where do you think the Dolphins trio of quarterback, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 ranks in the NFL, and is it the most cost effective while we're talking about contracts here, right? Because you've got Cincinnati, where you've got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and we know both Chase and Higgins want more money. Philly also comes to mind, right, with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who probably wants to fire his agent after seeing what all these other receivers got. I do think that the Dolphins are in pretty good shape. I don't know if you would include Seattle in that, right, with Geno Smith and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right?
With those three, but
yeah, they're and I don't know, Detroit maybe. But I think the Dolphins. Yeah, I think the Dolphins are really in the best shape if you look at those trios around the NFL for what they can do now, what they should be able to do 2 years from now, and you're gonna probably have all three unless Tyreek bolts. You're gonna keep these guys together. It's gonna be a 5-year run? Like, guys don't stay together for that long in the NFL. If so, I really do think the Dolphins are probably at the lead as far as that trio in the NFL.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that duo of wide receivers, yeah, you put it up against those guys, and I mean, it could possibly be number one. Tyreek Hill leading the league in receiving last year, 1799. And then, yeah, if you also include the tight end, then you could get a Mahomes, Kelsey, and then now it would be Rashee Rice, where it used to be Tyreek Hill, Mahomes, and Kelsey for sure was definitely leading the league then. But Rashee Rice had a great rookie season as well, and they ended up winning. But there were a lot of drops on that Chiefs receiving core, but he was still productive toward the end of the year at least. But still wouldn't be up there with Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, and Tyreek Hill. So yeah, I mean, I might say number one there.
Yeah. I mean, Buffalo, obviously Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis are gone. So that's major. Hey,
Gabe Davis didn't have that productive of a season. But he was coming off. He was looking really good right before that. So.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. Cat for Life says, from a media perspective, gentlemen, have you ever seen a scenario like this where your best players are a little disgruntled going into the beginning of training camp? We probably have nothing, and really it's just Tua and Tyreek. Jalen Waddle is very happy. I assure you, Jalen Waddle is very happy. And Chubb and Jalen Phillips aren't unhappy. Maybe Javon Holland sounds pretty patient. I bet there have been scenarios similar to this. Nothing comes to mind. I will remind you this, though. Way back in the day when the Dallas Cowboys were rolling with Aikman and Emmett and Michael Irvin, you remember, I believe it was the year after they won the Super Bowl, didn't Emmett held out like the first 4 games, right, in a contract dispute, and they went back to the Super Bowl and won it again. So these things do happen with star players, even if Tua holds out during 11-on-11 in training camp. I don't think this is going to be a long-term source of friction between Tua or the team. I think Tua's a little in his feelings. This is his first major contract negotiation, and I'm sure things are being said back and forth from the Dolphins about Tua so that they can save money. It's not personal. Everything will be everything. Once this is done, they'll be a happy family again, but this is just some necessary gnashing of teeth. It's part of bargaining and business and negotiation.
Yeah, definitely. We saw that side of it from Tua. He really was kind of unwilling to talk to us. He didn't want it to be up there in front of us talking about his weight loss and his offseason. And even he mentions the rubber band theory, like, oh, okay, he's giving us this. He must want to talk about it. And then he tells us, which if you don't know what that is, well, I'm not going to tell you because I don't feel like it. Right. Really setting the tone early in that press conference, but then as we got to that fun little game we were playing about what exactly is the word that he would use, and he kind of messed around with that, like he entertained it, and let off a smile at one of those where he smiled but he didn't say it, and long pause, and sort of entertained that game we were playing. Like, are you agitated? Are you annoyed? Are you antsy? He was the one that it seemed like he liked most. I think probably impatient. He's growing a little impatient. I think maybe if I could go back into that scrum, maybe I would have thrown that one out there, and that might be the one that he ultimately agrees with. But you're right. First time he's doing this type of thing, and I think what I mentioned, that maybe it was the last program that we had, maybe one before, that this organization has told him everything he wants to hear the last 2 years in order to instill that confidence. Now it comes time to go to the negotiating table, and the team is trying to save themselves a buck by saying, hey, Tua, honestly, this is the first time you made it through a season healthy, so we're still a little wary about that. You could still grow in this and that aspect of your game, and you did this, but you haven't done that. And then now he's starting to hear some negative things. Probably, I'm not in these rooms to actually hear them, but it's just that's the way these things go in negotiations. Where if everything if it was all positive all the time, they pay him the largest contract in NFL history, which maybe it still ends up being that because he's up this year and someone else will pass him next year or whatever the case may be. But Yeah, that's probably what's going on, and maybe it's something with some minutia in bonuses, guaranteed bonuses, guaranteed money. Which aspects are guaranteed and which aren't, as far as just nailing down those final few steps to get over the hump. When he has said that the two sides have made significant progress in this process.
And not to belabor Tua, Troy says no way Tua should set the quarterback market without a division championship or playoff run. You can talk about that, Furones, but let me ask you this. I thought Tua had something that he wanted to say about his contract situation when he talked to us, and here's why. You remember, this was, to my knowledge, this was only the third time he was asked about it, right? We asked him about it after the Kansas City loss when, understandably, he said, I'm just focused on the season. We asked him about it at the Tua luau when he said, I'm going to go to OTAs and everything is going to be everything. Both of those times he shut down that talk. This time he entertained that talk. Tua's not an out, I guess, very outgoing conversational guy. But I think he had something he wanted to say right there. He wanted to voice some frustration. Do you agree with that or no?
Yeah, certainly. His body language from the start indicated that he wanted to let the world know, hey, I'm not exactly pleased with everything the way it's going, and I expected this deal to get done by now, and now we're still here, and I'm at mandatory minicamp, and I got to get in front of you guys and talk about it instead of talking about how, boy, I'm so excited to be locked in for so many years down the road on a very lucrative deal.
And should he set the quarterback market without a division championship or playoff win? That's what Troy says. Poseidon chimes in caps. I would not allow Tua to set the market. And Randy, we need better microphones. Better equipment. I just wanted to say that because he said that in the chat. Listen, I agree. You know my stance. I think Tua should play on his fifth-year option, and let's see if he can stay healthy. Let's see if he can make guys around him better, get a division title, et cetera, et cetera. I know the market is the market. I think the Dolphins should reset the market with Tua. What do you think about Tua getting paid with no division title and setting the market?
Oh, so you do say he resets the market?
He should play this season on his fifth-year option. The Dolphins should reset the market. They should set money back. They should not pay Tua more than Jerry Goff.
Wow, yeah. It just doesn't work that way in the NFL, though.
But the salaries can't keep going up because the performances are not in line with the salaries. This is going to happen with the receivers also. You can't just keep giving these guys money when they aren't giving you results.
Yeah. But again, you also look at it as a percentage of the salary cap. As we detailed for everyone in one of our previous episodes, might have been the last one. So from that perspective, then, yeah, resetting the market, but it's not resetting as far as how much of the salary cap you're taking up. He would still be top 10 in that metric, though. But I wouldn't give him the richest contract that surpassing Patrick Mahomes after the restructure, because remember he was in the 40s, but then now he's one of those five that's up above 50, or Joe Burrow's 55 million per year. So, but I bet he is looking at that Jared Goff and saying, hey, I want Jared Goff money at least, even though Goff did just, he has made a Super Bowl. Now that was on a loaded Rams team. But then he also, remember that first one, not the one that they won I'm talking about, but that first one where they lost to the Patriots in a tremendously boring lack of offensive fireworks game. So he didn't really do much in that Super Bowl itself. But then also he did just get to the NFC Championship with his second team. Now that is the next team he went to, and Detroit Lions franchise that has been void of many successes. But since they've won playoff games, now the Dolphins have the longest playoff drought. So maybe indeed Tua is next to finish off a drought and then also get his money.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. Pete State says Perk Tua is mad for a reason. He has to prove he can win a meaningful game before pay. It's clear. So now let's see what a skinny mad Tua plays like and also how long it lasts. Troy says these quarterback salaries are handcuffing these teams' cap. I agree. Poseidon says the money is what the market is what they will pay you. I agree with that. And if no one is willing to pay him top of the market, that's obviously not his market. Right. Poseidon, there's that old saying, right? You're worth what somebody's willing to pay you. Shake Money says, how would you feel if they gave Tua a contract, then he outplays the contract and tries to renegotiate? Boy, that's an interesting question, Shake Money. I don't think. Ooh, that's an interesting. I never thought about that. First of all, for him to actually, let me say this, and you can take this, Furones. I don't think that I would mind because if he outplayed his contract, they probably win a Super Bowl, right? That's about the only for what he's about to get. That's probably the only way he outplays the contract. So while I might not like it, it would probably be worth it. I could probably see it.
Right. Outplaying the contract would be a scenario where he is leaving a lot of money on the table from that market is the market. And if he's saying the market is the market, he's not expecting to get paid below the market value. So he is going to get paid significantly once this deal becomes finalized, which I think it will get finalized before training camp in these next this month and a half that we have. And then, once you're making that much money, now it is to outplay it. You have to take the Dolphins to the top. That's how you're outplaying that contract.
Right. I agree. All right. It is time for one of the best segments of this 3-segment show, the Furones bonus.
Oh, the Furones bonus.
I love it, baby. I love it. All right. So this Furones bonus, I just love that. I love that. The Dolphins' biggest 3 stories of.
When are we going to get a sponsor? We need a sponsor for this.
I know. We were trying to get in touch with DJ Khaled. He's not returning my calls, but we're going to do something. Yeah, we're going to do something with it. Yeah, something big. Rick Ross, something big. Nike. We're in touch with everybody. Okay, so far, nothing, but it's coming.
I'm getting antsy here. I want this deal to get done.
I like it. I like what you did there. All right, Furones, speaking of being antsy, your 3 biggest stories of the offseason. There was the Tua contract. There was the Anthony Weaver hire, the Fangio departure, the free agent departures on day 1, Hunt, Wilkins, ABG, the Jalen Waddle contract. There's Tua wanting more money. What about Mike McDaniel telling us he schedules meetings, as you documented so well, at 24 on the hour, as a reminder that it's been 24 years since the Dolphins have won a playoff game. So he'll have a meeting not at 5, not at 5:30, at 5:24, 6:24. Very bizarre. There's the OBJ signing. There's Teron Armstead coming back to the Dolphins. The draft. They finally had a first-round pick, Chop Robinson. Your 3 biggest stories, and there's other stuff aside from that. Your 3 biggest stories of the offseason, Furones.
Okay, well, certainly Tua contract, which we've already spoken about at length here at this point on this program. That's definitely one of the biggest 3 stories of this offseason. The Anthony Weaver hire, Vic Fangio departure, that's kind of how the offseason kicked off. Definitely, I mean, that's a monumental change. The offensive staff staying consistent, but then 1 year into the Vic Fangio regime on defense, which you thought it was going to be. I mean, we chronicled all of it last offseason, just a year prior, that look at this marriage, the opposites attract of Mike McDaniel's coaching style and Vic Fangio's old school style, and how these two are merging and marrying. And then, just done after 1 year. So in a mutual parting of ways. So now Anthony Weaver getting those that extra little bit out of this defense that we want, even though the Dolphins defense was a top 10 defense last year, as you know very well, from a bet you had to pay off, because you didn't believe it would be a top 10 unit, and it did accomplish that. But it was just so inconsistent. It was you had those great defensive efforts against some of the lesser competition, but then you gave up the 48 against Buffalo, and then just not coming through in some of the bigger games. The LA Chargers win was won because of what the offense did in a shootout, 36-34, I think was the final score. There at Baltimore, that was a disaster. So just now, if Anthony Weaver can get some more consistency out of this team and sort of bring a little bit better of a merger between the Vic Fangio stagnant style, give you the same look all the time. We're going to remain consistent in what we do, and we dictate to you what we're going to do. You take what we give you, to Josh Boyer and Brian Flores before that aggressive, always blitzing style. Linebackers, safeties, always coming on the blitz, a lot of press man coverage, and kind of finding a nice common ground and in between with those styles, and seeing if Anthony Weaver can unlock that, and also while moving his greatest chess piece, as he has said, Jalen Ramsey, something that Vic Fangio was unwilling to do previously. So that's two of them, Tua and the Anthony Weaver hire. Third one, it's close. The free agency departures on day one of Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, AVG, all these guys going. That was very huge in that moment. And I think even though the Dolphins started to restock that roster just immediately afterwards, it still kind of was a little bit of a net loss in how the talent that you have on this roster, where I think going into what you viewed the roster when you just saw a hypothetical depth chart last offseason, it was a little bit better than what you're seeing right now. Now the Dolphins did then add Odell Beckham Jr. They could still add something else with the $18.5 million that was freed up from the Xavier Howard release. So this offseason still wasn't done, but that was a big one in that moment. But now it might go to that Tyreek Hill wanting more money, because now if that becomes an issue, then is this the last year of Tyreek Hill in Miami? There are no guarantees beyond this season. Right. So it starts becoming a realistic possibility that, okay, there's a reason why they didn't restructure his deal when they did with Bradley Chubb, with Jalen Ramsey. So extending it out a little bit more so that you lessen the salary cap hit this offseason, which was such a big priority right before free agency. And they restructured a lot of other smaller deals. And Tyreek Hill, they kind of stayed away. They were like, well, let's keep it the way it is, because no more guarantees after this upcoming season. That's something that gives you flexibility going forward if you are kind of fed up with Tyreek Hill's off the field issues, and if he starts showing some signs of decline, then if you do want to move on, then you have that freedom. Not saying they will, but there is that possibility. And then Mike McDaniel with the 24. That's really cool as far as the story that we found out yesterday. And then we'll all be revisiting come playoff time, and we'll all be. I can already pre-write my wild card round playoff game intro to the advance. I can just pre-write that, because we're going to circle back to that storyline once that comes about. But so that's a nice story right now, but not as far as biggest storylines of the offseason as a whole for this team.
I agree. But I'll say this, and I'll throw this out to our viewers, even though we'll have to wait a little bit for the text line to catch up. The Teron Armstead, you wrote about Teron coming back. Here was the sneaky news below that. Teron said he might not retire after this season. Is that good news after the team has drafted Patrick Paul in the second round? I know you want Teron around as long as possible because he's a Pro Bowl performer. But on the other hand, if you're Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, aren't you looking at Teron going, well, hold up, we could have got another position and drafted the tackle later and revisited that next year? Are you taking that seriously? Does anybody out there? Are you concerned? Is that what? Because I thought Teron is here and then he's gone, and then you don't have to really look. Teron is high-class individual, high-quality player, but he's an injury concern. You don't know if he's going to be in from 1 week to the next. Do you want another unsettling year from that? Do you want 2025 to be like that? Is that a concern, an issue, a surprise, Furones?
Hey, you're trying to kick Tehran to the curb? I mean,
what did I say? Another year, another surgery? That didn't. I think Frank Smith did not like that line too much. But look, I have the ultimate respect for Tehran. I really do. But it's from a business situation. Is that off-putting, unsettling, surprising that he wouldn't come back? That he would come back for 2025?
yeah. Now, he didn't say one way or the other. I think
Right.
what I read into that answer was more so just that his mindset, what his mindset is going into a season, that he's not going to definitively say it like Dwayne Wade did
Right.
that was 18-19 was that year. Yeah, 18-19. Yeah, I covered his last season. It's not going to be his one last dance. It's
Right.
going to be, hey, he's just going to focus on this season, and then all that will be revisited at the end of the year. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, maybe he was already thinking that before last season. And then, but maybe the question just didn't come up about, oh, what'd you think about retiring with all these injuries? And then he ended up playing, and then now he's playing again. So, but yeah, we did ask, and we got that out of him at the end of the season locker room cleanup day. So then we did find out and discover, yes, he is contemplating this potential retirement, but ultimately decides to come back. And so he takes it 1 year at a time, really. Just the cliche, he really just approaches it that way. So, but from the Dolphins' perspective, now they'll always say they don't draft by position of need. And so they saw Patrick Paul as that best player available with what they can develop him into when they took him in that second round. So not necessarily because they anticipate Teron Armstead is going to be here one more year, and then you give Patrick Paul a year of schooling before you then depend on him to start. So it can. I think the Dolphins would welcome it if Teron Armstead, if he has a great season, if he stays healthy, and then he doesn't look at retirement the same way because he's like, man, now I'm going. I can,
Yeah.
I didn't have any of the injuries that I had all these last few years. I could go another one. If he thinks that way going into 2025, I think the Dolphins would welcome it with open arms, especially if he does make it through a season healthy and has another Pro Bowl campaign, let's say, then yeah, you would welcome it. And then, it's okay if Patrick Paul then gets, more time to develop. And then if that following season he does have to get thrust into some action because there are injuries, then so be it. But hopefully it is beneficial for Paul, though, to have this year where he won't have that pressure, especially since he is viewed as a little bit of a developmental prospect for the Dolphins, that they know they want to work on some things technique-wise with him while he has those raw traits, physical traits of the size and athleticism, and then work on that while you have Teron Armstead starting on the left side and Austin Jackson, who you've secured for the future, on the right side.
Yeah, and I talked to Patrick Paul. I think I'm probably going to write a column on him getting tutored by both Kendall Lamb and Teron Armstead. That's a lot of knowledge. That's a lot of good, high-quality knowledge. All right, so Furones, let's go into our final segment, which, by the way, is also one of the best three segments of the show.
Yeah, it's a top three segment of this three-segment.
I guarantee you it's going to be a top three segment of the show. We are wrapping up minicamp and looking ahead to training camp. And we'll start off this segment by saying hello to Mark Heavy. Glad you could join the show also. Troy says this, because we're looking back and looking ahead. Troy says the secondary needs to hone their tackling abilities because there will be gaping run lanes unless the Fins sign a starting caliber D lineman to pair with Sealer. So I'll use that as a jumping off point to this. When we talk about what we saw during minicamp, there were personnel groupings and things that we saw that we cannot report because that's our agreement. It's for competitive reasons that the Dolphins are doing that are different than what we've seen in the past. You know about Anthony Weaver saying that he wants to use Jalen Ramsey as a chess piece and move him around, and Jalen Ramsey is excited about that. But just let your mind think about other personnel groupings that you could have out there on the field, things you wanted to see. The Dolphins have flashed signs of this kind of stuff with us right now. Whether it continues in training camp and the regular season, I don't know. But I do think that philosophically and strategically, this team will be different. How they use tight ends on third downs, things like that. I think they're going to think differently. Along those lines, Furones, when Troy talks about getting another starting caliber D lineman, you asked Mike McDaniel about this, right? The interior offensive and defensive linemen. I think their overall strategy is go into training camp with what we've got, and let's see through the dual practices and things, preseason games, and then after the cuts, we'll circle back around, right, and revisit if we need interior offensive line or defensive line. That's what I think. What do you think about the starting caliber D lineman and interior, and do you think we'll see philosophically and strategically different things?
Yeah, well, now on the D line, you're going into a year where it's a transformation of from the Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, two guys that are going to play almost every snap, which is kind of very uncommon for D linemen to not rotate out more. But those are two guys that can handle that workload. And then now you lose Christian Wilkins in free agency, so it's Zach Sealer now who will have the focus on him. And then it's a lot of rotating guys that can line up in different spots. Some are nose tackles, some can be the 3 technique, some can do both of those, some can be a little bit more on the edge as a 5 technique. So that's when you line up on the outside shoulder of an offensive tackle, by the way. 3 technique is when you're between a guard and a tackle. So with all these different alignments that you can do and having so many bodies rotating, it's going to keep guys more fresh. So it's kind of going to be a philosophy of, we're going to get an efficient 20 to 25 snaps out of each of these guys. Zach Sealer will get a lot more than that. He'll be the one that's more consistent and staying on the field on the D line. And then all the other ones kind of rotate in and out. So you try to get the most out of them, the most burst that they can provide for the snaps that they are on the field. Whereas previously, I mean, when we take attendance at Dolphins practices last year, you know how the roster that they give us is split up by position groups. That defensive line group was just so small. It was just it was Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, and then Emmanuel Ogbah, because he was listed as a defensive end, even though he would stand up a lot. And it was like Deshaun Hand, Brandon Peely. I'm probably missing someone, but it was like, all right, we quickly knocked those out. Oh, Raekwon Davis, of course. Right. But yeah, you would quickly just cross those off. Like you got those. It was very, very quick. They're going to have a lot more D linemen that they can rotate in under Anthony Weaver, because that's what he wants to do, keep guys fresh. So I think, that's a big part of the philosophy you were saying. And what was the other part of that question?
And do you have reason to believe that the Dolphins will do things differently, strategically, and philosophically? Not major changes, just kind of tweaks that they will approach different situations maybe differently. Like we saw the complaints about them not blitzing Will Levis last year, the Tennessee quarterback, and letting him sit back there and throw situationally.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's going to be a combination of that. But in the middle of that Boyer-Flores defense that was very aggressive, to then all the consistent looks that Vic Fangio was bringing last year. So it's going to be such a variety of things that we see, and I think Anthony Weaver is sort of that right mind to find that common ground that'll work best. And he even said from the beginning that Jalen Ramsey he views as the ultimate chess piece. So it should come as no surprise that, yes, we have seen him move around and doing different things. And in highlighting one thing that he did pressure a quarterback. So let your mind wander about what he did on that play. But, to highlight that he pressured a quarterback, then you got to know, all right, he was doing something untraditional for a cornerback. So watch out for so many different things that you could let Weaver's creativity. And then this is all stuff that Jalen Ramsey has done in the past, too. So he even said it that this is the type of deal that he's more used to, whereas last year was an adjustment for him, and now he's going back to what he has known and loved.
Yep. Peter McDowell. You probably did miss the Furones bonus, but hey, you can get the podcast. It says the Furones bonus is always available. John Fiorino says, it makes me feel better that these contracts are really looked over and no rush without looking to the future. Tua will eventually get his deal. Yeah, I think the Dolphins are pretty good about the contract situations. I don't think they're like really in salary cap hell with anybody. Are they? Any individual contract, and they're not as a team? I know that they were, they went into the offseason $51 million over the cap or whatever it was, but that was handled with a few strokes of pens and a couple of cuts. So, I do trust the Dolphins when it comes to contracts. You, Furones, I think they do pretty well overall. I mean, Oddbob being the exception, right? Maybe.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But then you got out from under that one, and
Right.
yeah, you did find an out with the Byron Jones. See, yeah, there's always
Right.
these outs that they have, and
Yeah.
you wrote a great piece earlier this offseason on Brandon Shore, the work he does
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in these contracts and working out those what's the term for them? I already forgot the those extra years that are added on that it's
Void years.
void years, yes.
Yeah.
I had a brain fart in the moment. Yeah, so working those void years, it's always some salary cap gymnastics and mastery that that duo between Chris Greer and Brandon Shore working together, they put together.
Scant Dollar says, make Tua play on that fifth-year option. I agree. Mark Heavy says, Jordan Brooks, Anthony Walker, David Long should mean there won't be gaping holes in the middle. I do like the linebackers. And I asked Joe Barry, the linebacker coach, and I asked David Long about this too, that where's the nasty going to come from on this defense? Where's the mean? You lost Christian Wilkins. You lost Deshaun Elliott. David Long definitely provides some of that head-banging attitude. But I think Jordan Brooks, I think Anthony Walker go along with that. Saran Neal, the special teamer who's a cornerback, he goes along with that. I do think that this team is going to be meaner and nastier than previous Dolphins teams. The gaping holes in the middle, that's a skill thing. But attitude-wise, I do think they're going to have what it takes.
Yeah, Perk, you listened to Jordan Brooks when we met him on the Zoom after his famous deals. I mean, yeah, you knew the answer to that question when you asked it. That was a rhetorical question on your part. You knew it was Jordan Brooks. You just needed the quote to go with what you were going to write.
That's it.
All right, we all know it.
That's right. I can't make the quote up, but I can put it in his mouth pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You knew who it was from the moment you met Jordan Brooks. He was going to provide that.
Hey.
And Joe Barry, by the way, who is defensive play calling experience, defensive coordinator experience. Now he's that run game coordinator, so he will be tasked with that specific aspect of it. You know, like obviously Anthony Weaver is a defensive coordinator, but he has the subcategory of run game coordinator to his job title. So that'll be big on him to especially working those linebackers as linebackers coach in order to stop the run.
Yep. Let's run through a couple of others here. Mark Heavy, Perk, tell us who the backup cornerbacks will be. Very good question. And what are the chances X comes back? Does Ethan Bonner make the active roster? Backup cornerback is very, very interesting. I was talking to Ryan Slowick, the defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator, and I said, are Kendall Fuller and Cater Kohu automatically penciled in as starters? He gave the company line, nobody is really penciled in as a starter right now, blah, blah, blah. I think that they are. The backups, that's very interesting, right? Nick Needham, who has been splitting time between corner and safety, I would think that ultimately you need him there. I asked Ryan Slowick about Cam Smith. He said mentally Cam Smith is in a good place. He's forgotten about last year, but he's got to show that, look, you know how cornerbacks get injured. The top two cornerbacks on this roster are probably going to make, and we could just say 2 starts, right? That just the way that cornerbacks get injured. Is Cam Smith up to that? Is Nick Needham up to that? What if it's against Houston and you're going up against Stephon Diggs or whatever? It's I don't know. I hope that the backup cornerbacks are on this roster. They don't have to go outside. I think they are. Ethan Bonner, I think he makes the active roster. He's got speed. He's young. He's got some talent. I haven't seen him in scrimmage much. He'll probably have to make it through special teams. But backup corner, I'm a little concerned until I actually see them out there. I like Needham. I'm not sure about Cam Smith. What do you think, Furones?
Yeah, you're going to need to get Cam Smith to see an uptick in his productivity. Nick Needham is another year removed from that Achilles tear, so I think he's going to be moving around better with more confidence the way he pivots and turns off of that foot. Yes, I mean Saran Neal has a guaranteed spot on the roster because of his special teams prowess. So his position defensively is cornerback. So he would have a roster spot and be one of those backups when needed. So Ethan Bonner will have a shot to make the roster. I'm also looking at Storm Duck. All right, Storm Duck. All right, the best name on this football team. Which, by the way, did we ever get a Duck Waddle matchup in
I don't know. We did not.
Yeah, we
Great
did
tweet
not.
by you.
Yeah, yeah. that was when I with an assist from Al Butler, one of the guys on the beat as well, because it just came about in a conversation we had. So yeah, I mean, that's assuming that it's Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, and Kader Kohu as the slot corner in the nickel, as your top three. So after that, yeah, then I'm looking at those guys. Storm Duck got a big guarantee for an undrafted free agent when the Dolphins signed him after the rookie draft.
Yeah. B Stuff the Poet asks, are you confident that the offense has the personnel to power through the slow starts we see against playoff teams who took away Hill and Waddle? Can the plan C's and D's like Jonnu Smith be plan A's? I'm glad you asked that question. So here's the deal. We were talking about the defensive changes and strategy and stuff like that. Offensively, yes. I want to see the tight ends used, goal line, red zone, third down. I want to see Chris Brooks used in power running situations. I want to see the slot receiver become a weapon. I don't know. I don't know if the plan C's and D's can be plan A's, but I do think that through strategy and different usage, don't ask them. Don't ask them to do things that they're not capable of doing. Play within their strengths and then take advantage of it. And I think that's the key to diversifying this offense and having them have more success against those quality teams, because now they have to defend more of the field, more of the players on the field. To me, it's very simple. As I say, you defend Tyreek Hill, you've gone probably 70% of the way of stopping this offense. Think differently. Use Chris Brooks. Use Jonnu Smith. Use Jody Fortson. Use OBJ. Use Braxton Berrios. Devon Achane, Jalen Wright. You've got weapons. Use them. I do think that Mike McDaniel will do that this year. I do think that I've seen signs of that in OTAs and minicamp.
Yeah, and we know Mike McDaniel to be that kind of thinker, certainly. So I think so. And then that also transcends into what he wants out of this defense is playing to players' strengths. And that's why I think him and Anthony Weaver sort of see eye to eye, and he saw a commonality in those two, in their minds and the way he sees offense, Weaver sees defense.
Yep. And Cat for Life says, who's our kick returners? Oh boy. We can't, Mike McDaniel did say something right yesterday about, I could see a lot of running back one and wide receiver one, the starters wanting to get out there and give it a shot because of the alignment and because you run free for so long. We can't say. You'll have to wait till training camp to see who they've had back there at kick returner under the new rules. The different body types and bodies that they've had out there on kickoff team and kickoff return team. But I think you're going to be very entertained. Look, when you just go through, when you talk kickoff returners, the speed, right? Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and Jalen Wright, Braxton Berrios was a Pro Bowl returner. So these are guys that we've seen doing this. So let your imagination run free. Devon Achane, the speedy, shifty, open field guys, let your imagination run free, and then you'll see it on the field during training camp.
Yeah, but you also first and foremost have to think the guy that the Dolphins have had back on return specialist Braxton Berrios, which that would be breaking no rules because we know that is a position of his. So, but yeah, I mean he was clearly involved heavily in that role, and then just how they utilize that second guy that you're allowed into in that landing zone, the 20-yard line. Yep. You can read more about what Danny Crossman was saying about the new kickoff rules and Mike McDaniel Sentinel as well, in a story I just wrote yesterday on that. So they're going to be messing around with a lot of different things. It could be very interesting week one with a lot of different unique strategies that maybe different teams have conjured up in these brainstorming sessions that you've had all offseason to sort of think about how you're going to work this new kickoff. And I think Danny Crossman said, yeah, the type of athletes he wants is guys that are both athletes and blockers or tacklers if you're on the other side. Yeah, you want guys that can do both. It's not like you're going to throw out a bunch of just big blocking guys because you're sort of looking at like a line, like an offensive line, a line of scrimmage in between that 35 and I always forget all the specific yard lines now. Yeah, that zone where sort of the two sides will collide 5 yards apart. But yeah, you need guys that can do both. So sort of think about those positions and which type of athletes can get both of those things done.
Troy says, I'm anxious to see training camp. I'm hoping Duck shows the kind of ball instincts we saw in Louisville at the NFL level. Anything for that secondary would be great. I trust the starters. The reserves, I've got to see a little bit more. Sharif West says, I think I'm reading this right, 128 yards rushing, 13 rushing first downs, 4 touchdowns is Tua's career highs. If he does a Christian Wilkins and doubles each category, is that all pro? Remember, he's got cachet already. No. The rushing, no, because that would be rushing for 250 yards, 26 first downs, and 8 TDs. I mean, that's good. I don't know if that's all pro because Lamar Jackson seems like he does that all the time. I think Tua's thing is going to be passing and getting this team, 13 wins, something like that, Furones. I don't think rushing the ground game, although it would be a huge eye-opener coming from a guy with head issue problems, right? Concussions, if he's rushing for 250 yards and, 8 touchdowns. But I think that left arm is his way to being an all-pro and victories.
Yeah, let's be clear. Mike McDaniel was joking. He was being sarcastic when he mentioned Tua Tagovailoa being a read option quarterback.
Yes.
How spelt is spelt for Tua Tagovailoa. You have so many playmakers on this offense. You want Tua Tagovailoa to be the point guard, distributing the ball to all these guys and only using any gained agility and escapability that he has possibly gained from working out this offseason on that change of direction and slimming down only in emergency situations and to extend plays and extending plays to then give himself more time to get the ball to all those other guys that he's going to have so many of now after the Dolphins added not only Jalen Wright in the draft to Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert that he already had coming out of the backfield, adding to Odell Beckham Jr. to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So Jonnu Smith at tight end and Jody Fortson in a group that already had Durham Smythe. So so many options. Let Tua get the ball to these guys.
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap it up with 2 questions that we will combine into one that were asked earlier from Shake Money and from Peter McDowell. Shake Money, how do you compare the talent of training camp from last year to this year? Peter McDowell, do we still have cap space to sign any late camp cuts? Here's what I'll say. The Dolphins are down overall in talent, but again, as I've said, that doesn't mean you can't have a better season. If you think about using that talent differently, which I think the Dolphins are going to do, you can have a better result with lesser talent. And as far as the cap space to sign any late camp cuts, I don't think you're going to be signing, I would say, anybody of the OBJ stature and above. I think you're probably going to be signing, the Robert Joneses and guys like that, right? That's what I think. I don't think they're looking to make even if it's a starting defensive lineman or a starting interior offensive lineman, I don't think you're going for a former Pro Bowl type player. I might be wrong though.
Yeah. I mean, one guy I wanted to mention when we started this last segment is when we talked about the D-line, Calais Campbell. I would love it if the Dolphins could bring him in on the D-line, such a veteran, former Walter Payton Man of the Year, great locker room guy, and a guy who went to the U. And so maybe if he could have one last dance in the NFL for it to be playing for the Miami Dolphins, where he played his college football in Miami. Although I believe is he from Colorado? I think.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of someone, but yeah, just where he played his college football to then to finish off an NFL career that where he has never been on the Dolphins. That would be pretty cool. So if he wants to do another season, I don't know what the case is there, but that would be nice. So yeah, but they have the cap space. They have it after the Xavier Howard cut gave them $18.5 million post June 1. So they have the room to work with. Maybe some of that goes into some of the negotiations that they already have ongoing with current players, so that you can give guys more money now and then not have the burden come later. But yeah, there's room to work with, and maybe they want to forward those cap savings into future seasons when you know you're going to need some flexibility in order to re-sign different guys or be able to make outside free agency moves in years to come.
Typical Chris Perkins. I said that was it. Peter McDowell says Simmons at safety would be nice, Justin Simmons. But you do have your two starters, right? But yeah, that would be nice. Richard Thompson says, why doesn't anyone call Tua out for the fact that he is not in the market? He claims to be. He doesn't have the talent of those other quarterbacks. I disagree. I just think that quarterbacks get too much money. 20% of the salary cap is too much for the vast majority of these guys who are making it. Patrick Mahomes being the exception. Joe Burrow, stay healthy. I respect you and I like you. Stay healthy. But Joe would be in that category. Josh Allen would be in that 20% or more. Lamar Jackson would be in that 20% or more. Pretty much everybody else, I'm not down with it. Jared Goff, Tua, Dak Prescott, I'm not down with it. Sorry. Justin Herbert, not down with it. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
You avoided him, so just to make sure, because
that's
nice to know where you stand.
Yes, no, Justin Herbert, no. I don't know. I don't want to revisit that, but the Herbert Tua thing. I was a Tua guy coming out of the draft. I'm not going back on that at this point.
Right. And then, yeah, I mean, rookie season, first 2 years, and Herbert gave you the look of it. Now, Tua was under the previous regime and didn't have the playmakers that Justin Herbert had. And then now you've seen what he's done, what Tua has done. Once he does have the weapons around him and an offensive-minded coach in Mike McDaniel that can maximize his talent. He led the league in passer rating in 22, and which is 2 years ago, and then now 2023 leading the league in passing yards as he had his first full healthy season. But I know probably we have an assistant sports editor, Steve Speck, is pounding the table saying, "What are you guys talking about? Justin Herbert is otherworldly." Yes. But hey, right now, what either of them have accomplished, neither one has won a playoff game. Both of them have made one playoff start. Tua Tagovailoa has won more games on the Dolphins. Some could argue, better teams that the Dolphins have had, but he finally only had the better weapons just these past 2 years, and we've seen that, he can put up the numbers once he does have that. So, he did show that aspect. Now, I don't want to pay him and make him the richest quarterback in NFL history, but I think he's going to make what the market warrants, and with the numbers he's put up the last couple of years, and then a lot of guys get paid before they win their first playoff game, before they make deep runs. I mean, look at Peyton Manning. They said he couldn't win the big game, and then obviously, no one was ever going to scoff at him getting the big money. Not saying Tua is Peyton Manning, by the way, but
no, that's what you said. That's what you just said, Furones. All right, real quick, because I can't stop. Mal be crazy. Great to see you. Michael Desire says need to upgrade backup quarterback ASAP. Any thoughts on that, Furones?
Well, yeah. I mean, there were some periods of mini camps and OTAs where, we didn't see Tua participate in the 11-on-11 drills, by the way, worth noting as he goes through his contract negotiations. And some of those periods looked a little rough for the offense. The defense won both of those days, I think, of minicamp sessions. And then we had times when Tua doing the 7-on-7 work was very sharp. I mean, that first minicamp session, no ball hitting the ground that wasn't the result of a drop from a receiver. So he was a bit surgical, some would say, which was a word thrown out in the media workroom that some took exception to. Backup quarterback is a spot. Or Mike White, we didn't get to see Mike White last year, which is a credit to Tua. Tua stayed healthy, so you only saw Mike White at the end of blowout games. Throwing a bomb to Robbie Chosen to make it 70-20 a final against the Denver Broncos.
Let me say this about Mike White, man. One of the best guys to go and talk to in the locker room. The backup quarterback can usually explain stuff to you. How are they defending Tyreek? What are they doing to Waddle? Why don't you guys do this? Why do you guys do that? Without giving away strategy, Mike White can explain the game like he can break it down. The dude might have a future as an analyst. He is really good. He's a go-to guy. And very friendly also. Good class act. I really like Mike White. So don't
that's a university school education that he got in South Florida.
That's right.
Being a U school grad, So.
That's right. Exactly.
And working under Roger Harriet, a great high school football coach in the area that has since gone on to win so many titles at St. Thomas Aquinas. That's who he had at U school when they were known as the Suns, not the Sharks.
There you go. Look at you. Look at dropping that knowledge. I like it. All right. Finally, I say this is finally. Lee Underwood, good to see you, Lee. The Baltimore defense used various defensive line formations, and there was significant time with only one defensive tackle on the field. Did they keep their defensive alignments pretty vanilla? I think you're asking about the Dolphins. I don't know if you're asking about the Ravens there, but listen, I would say this, that under Anthony Weaver, the Dolphins have showed us that they're going to do some different things. I don't know if you could say exotic, but they're going to do things differently than they did under Brian Flores, Josh Boyer, or Vic Fangio, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. And your D-line is, it's all defensive tackles, really.
Yeah.
Maybe Jonathan Harris is like a D tackle / D end, but some of those bigger bodies, then, they might line up a little bit more out of the center of the field because you're going to mix them together on the same D-line. So, and you haven't had your edges yet, your starting ones in Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb in team drills. So, their availability might have something to do with how you mix and match guys, but it's going to be interesting. I think, Anthony Weaver has said that what the Ravens did last year, that'll be sort of at the foundation of what the Dolphins want to do. So, you're on the right track thinking that.
Yep. B21, how has Gavin Hardison looked? He's looked okay in drills. He was throwing the ball into the net pretty good, but we haven't really seen him doing a whole lot out there, really, right? 7, 11, 11.
Only the day when Tua wasn't there, because then he was the third quarterback up. But outside of that, if Tua was there, then we would see Mike White and Skylar Thompson, and then and they would take the 11 drills. So we saw one day really of Gavin Hardison working with the team, and hey, he's got an arm on him, which we've mentioned on previous programs. But those interceptions from college a little bit worrisome too. So decision making would have to improve.
Yep. All right. Appreciate everybody. Nandito357. Don't worry. I'm not coming back with dreads, although I did say cornrows if the Dolphins win the Super Bowl. So the hair is staying. All right. We appreciate it. We will be back with you at some point during training camp. Much love to everybody. You are watching Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk and the Furones bonus, one of our top 3 segments today on Sentinel.com.